We are just a few days away from the launch of Jaguar Gator 7, an all-new channel focusing on the history of baseball. Click the card in the upper right corner or the link in the description to subscribe now. And now, on with our feature presentation. I don't know about you, but I cannot think of one time in Super Bowl history that a hyped-up advertisement actually, lived up to the hype. Hyping up an advertisement before the big game is only setting yourself up for disappointment. Lemmings back in 1985 with Apple was the quintessential let's hype this ad up advertisement of all time. Heck, Apple even had seat cushions at Super Bowl XIX for the fans at Stanford Stadium, and the ad was shown on the video board before the game, which never happens. That ad was a catastrophic failure, and you can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Remember the hyped up Tim Tebow ad before Super Bowl 44 that drew tons of attention for how controversial it was, and then it aired, and it was the most inoffensive, unmemorable ad ever? Heck, M&M's? What the heck was that this year? I thought we were going to see a 3-part series or something during the game, but nope. It was just one clumsily put together ad that meant absolutely nothing. But by far, the most hyped up ad at Super Bowl 57 during the game, and throughout the entire postseason for that matter, was the FanDuel Kick of Destiny. This was supposed to be a revolutionary ad with a simple premise. Have future Hall of Fame tight end Rob Gronkowski line up for a 25-yard field goal live during the Super Bowl. If he makes the kick, then FanDuel gives out $10 million in free bets. A live ad during the Super Bowl? Again, pretty revolutionary if you ask me. Sure, we've seen somewhat similar stunts before, like at Super Bowl XXVIII, when Reebok aired an advertisement during the fourth quarter of the game that featured Emmitt Smith highlights from that Super Bowl. That's an interesting story for a future video. But something on this scale? Never attempted before. And when I say that this ad was hyped up, I truly mean it. They were airing tons of ads before the game. There were promos about the kick, and there were people betting on whether or not Gronk would hit this live kick. If FanDuel wanted to generate hype for an advertisement, they absolutely succeeded. Having said that, if they wanted to actually air a good advertisement, they failed. And quite miserably, I might add. The entire thing was just a confusing and jumbled mess. No one knew whether or not the kick went in, especially since fireworks went off and people were celebrating, and yet, Gronk fell to his knees as though he missed the kick. Everything felt insanely rushed, and it just left people feeling frustrated, especially since the kick wasn't taking place live at State Farm Stadium, and instead was taking place somewhere within the Arizona desert at an undisclosed location. Fans responded negatively to the ad. Studies show that only 35% of people who viewed the ad viewed FanDuel in a positive light afterwards, and the commercial currently has way more dislikes than likes on YouTube, which you can view through a Chrome extension since YouTube stupidly took away that option to view about a year ago. Bottom line, the ad was a failure, especially for all the buildup that it got. But perhaps the most controversial part about it was the fact that all along, FanDuel was claiming that this ad was live. This was really taking place during the third quarter of the Super Bowl. This was really taking place live all along, and in no way whatsoever was this pre-recorded. Truly, this was the first live ad in Super Bowl history. And everyone involved with the ad and the aftermath absolutely insisted, despite obvious skepticism from people on social media, that this commercial was entirely live. Mark Hespin, the voice for the commercial, said on this, "Most of the camera operators were people who had worked on Marvel movies. You see the comments, and people think it was CGI, which is so funny, because it looks so good." Rob Lopez, who manages video content for FanDuel, also insisted that this was legitimate, saying, "The kick was real. It was live. Gronk was heartbroken." And Kay Adams, who also works for FanDuel, went after people on Twitter who said that the ad was fake. Not only were people bashing how bad the ad turned out to be, but they questioned the legitimacy of the entire thing, which is the last thing that FanDuel wanted to have happen. But here I am to clear up the entire thing. Because to all the naysayers out there, I am absolutely convinced that this ad was 100% fake. Yep, you heard that right. This supposed live ad was not live in the slightest bit. Now, the kick itself, that was legit. That wasn't CGI. Gronk actually kicked that ball, and actually missed it, and there's a side angle shot that confirms that. But the live aspect of it, I would be downright stunned if this was legit. And despite what people at FanDuel might say, I have quite a bit of evidence to prove it, and that this entire month-long campaign promoting a live kick was in no way whatsoever live. First, let's start with the location. Now, at no point in the ad did FanDuel ever disclose exactly where they were. Hespin, who did the voiceover, just said live from the Arizona desert. And Arizona is a pretty big state with a lot of desert. This could be anywhere for all we know. Except, as it turns out, we know exactly where this kick took place. Because on Saturday, February 11th, one day before the game, a Redditor by the name of Genuine Genius was hiking and stumbled across this set, which was exactly where Gronk was going to be taking the kick. Now, I'm just going to ignore the fact that in the title of the post, which cannot be edited, he said that from what he heard, the kick was going wide left. And sure enough, it went wide left. He could have had inside information, or he could have just been making a joke and taking a guess, since he had a 1 in 4 shot of being right, since either it would miss short, it would miss left, it would miss right, or it would be good. However, he wasn't the only Redditor who hiked in that area, as another Redditor named Jeremy S1998 posted this photo about how he was in that location earlier, confirming what was originally put up. But after the post was made, Genuine Genius updated where that location was, and said that it was in the Estrella mountain range. Alright, so that's taken care of. We know the exact location where this kick of destiny took place, which means that if we can figure out what the wind was actually like when the kick took place, we should be able to have a pretty good idea whether this was real or not. Fortunately, there are plenty of weather stations around the area, so let's pick the one that seems to match the description the best. Number 44, or KAZ Goody 196. When I pick that station, and then match the wind speed and direction, we get something that looks like this. And almost immediately, you can tell that something about this seems off. Before we do that, it's important that we talk about how wind is measured. Wind is measured in the direction that it is coming from, not the direction that it's going, which can be a bit tricky. If you have a west wind, it means that the air is blowing left to right, even if your gut instinct is telling you that it should be blowing right to left. Vice versa, if you have an east wind, it means that the air is blowing right to left, even if, again, your gut instinct is telling you that it should be blowing left to right. If we watch the kick again, we can clearly see that the wind is blowing right to left, and quite heavily, I might add. That means that we should have an east wind when the kick took place, which was at 7:40 p.m. in Arizona. However, when we look at the wind chart, that's odd. It says that it's coming from the west, as in the exact opposite direction that the kick took place. If this kick was truly live, then the wind would match what the weather station was reporting for that same time, and would be blowing the opposite direction, with Gronk kicking from west to east. Instead, it's an east to west wind. But that's not all, because at 8:47 p.m. afterwards, Gronk posted this video to his Twitter feed about the missed kick.
I am not one to make excuses, but if you were out here and felt this wind, you would know why I missed. And if there was no wind, it would have went right down the middle. But it's okay, because I don't make excuses, but I was just letting you know.
Once again, notice the direction of the wind. It's going east to west, just like the kick. However, there are two things that stand out about this clip. Number one, once again, that doesn't line up at all with what the weather station indicated. That indicated winds going west to east, as in the exact opposite direction. But number two, the wind had supposedly died down by that point. It was only 7 miles per hour according to the weather station. Yet, according to Gronk's video, it was way windier than that at the time. I want to give you some perspective of what 7-mile-per-hour winds looks like. Here's an extra point from right when a 1998 game between the New York Giants and Oakland Raiders kicked off, since Oakland took this extra point with 14:51 on the clock. Pay attention to the flags on the goalpost for this kick. Keeping in mind that this isn't real time. The winds for this game, at least at kickoff when the play was, were 10 miles per hour. Now look at Gronk's post-kick video, when they were 7 miles per hour. In no way whatsoever does that look like 7 miles per hour. That looks significantly stronger than that. At the very least, stronger than the 10 mile per hour winds of the Oakland-New York game. And again, even if we give Gronk the benefit of the doubt that he took that video when the winds were stronger, the wind is still blowing in the wrong direction. Now before going any further, here's the weird part about all of this. I genuinely believe that everyone was on location during the game. I genuinely believe that all of the people were on site as the game was taking place, just that the ad was filmed on a different day. Hespin did an interview where he talked about how they were all watching the game, and Gronk was talking to him during it, which was a highlight for him. And he's got no reason to lie about that. Gronk also posted this video at 6:24 p.m., right around halftime of the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, the kick of destiny is almost here, and it's extra windy, but I'm ready for the challenge.
And in that video, you can see the wind moving pretty heavily from west to east, which lines up exactly with what the weather station was reporting in terms of speed and direction. That's what makes this whole thing so bizarre. They actually were in the desert during the game. They actually were there on Super Bowl Sunday on the night of the game. But for whatever reason, the ad itself was not live. And if the wind speed wasn't enough, there are some camera shots that are, let's just say, kind of iffy. Now, to the naked eye, it might not be noticeable. But I did what anyone would do in this situation who had way too much time on their hands. And I took the commercial and slowed it down to a ridiculously slow speed of 5%. This means that any movements, no matter how subtle, are going to be caught. I have to move my mouse 5 times to get even one frame. It's basically like watching this commercial in a series of freeze frames. There are certain shots where it cuts to a different camera. And when that happens, there are some incredibly minor, but still noticeable continuity things when you zoom in and look closely enough. For example, look at this shot, where Adam Vinatieri is looking on, and the next shot, where Gronk is lining up for the field goal. Let's zoom in on this girl right here. In the last frame of Vinatieri looking on, look at her hair in the shape that it's in. Now, look at her hair in the very first frame of Gronk about to kick the field goal. The shape of the hair looks different. Now let's look at an earlier scene, with the first shot showing Gronk about to kick the field goal, and the second shot showing Anna Vinatieri looking on. Look at this girl, and how her hair is blowing in the wind. Notice that you see some loose strands, but they only go as high as mouth level. In the next shot though, we see some additional strands at nose level, and even at eye level. There's also this scene, from the second shot of Vinatieri looking on, to the third shot of Gronk about to try the kick. And this girl's hair. Look at the left side. In the second shot, it's got a key-like shape, where it's very circular at the top. However, in the third shot, that's very straight, and almost triangle-like. No curves at all. It's a different shape. And then, you have this difference from the first shot to the second shot. Look at this girl's hair and the bottom of it. Again, very straight, and there's no swoop upward at the end. But in the next shot, it's curved with a swoop upward. Now, are any of these continuity things noticeable to the naked eye? No. Was this filmed in one take? Absolutely, and I'm not even going to try to deny that. But my guess, based on this, is that with all the cameras rolling, because the commercial initially might have run longer than 30 seconds, and they were on a tight deadline because it was the Super Bowl, they took out some of the establishing shot footage that they initially had in there. And by some, I mean milliseconds and fractions of a second. But it's just enough where if you know where to look and know where to zoom in, and slow it down just enough, you can tell. So seeing as FanDuel claimed this was a live ad, but the wind speeds don't add up whatsoever, and some of the camera work is a bit questionable with an investigative eye, what's my theory? Again, they were actually on site the day of the Super Bowl as the game was taking place. There was no doubt in my mind that they were. The halftime video that Gronk posted adds up perfectly. But as for when the actual kick took place, there is a date where everything lines up, and it's not February 12th. That date is February 9th. There was a date where the winds were in the right direction as shown on the commercial, and were heavy enough to produce those results. And the night of February 9th, just looking at the wind chart, makes sense, seeing as you had wind speeds over 15 miles per hour. Plus, Gronk was in Arizona throughout Super Bowl week, but I could not find any obligations that he had that night of the 9th. On Friday, February 10th, he was hosting a party with Vernon Davis. On Saturday, February 11th, he had his Gronk Beach party out in Scottsdale. But on Thursday, February 9th, absolutely nothing. There's nothing on his Twitter feed from that time either that could indicate him being in another location. Nor is there anything on his Instagram from that time as well. So if I had to guess, that's what happened. I find it extremely hard to believe, considering the evidence at hand, that this was actually live. Still, whether this was live or not, and I think you know my opinions on that front, this was an absolute failure that left many people confused considering how rushed it felt, especially with all that build-up. Because even though everyone technically won, since FanDuel was offering the $10 million in bets regardless of whether or not Gronk hit the kick, FanDuel, considering the negative publicity they got, absolutely lost. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at Jaguar Gator 9. To see college football videos, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. So you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.